All right, good evening, everybody. It's your boy Akeem, and welcome to today's vlog. Continuing with my Week 9 preview for fantasy football, here to give you some players that you should bench and start for each position for this week. Now, I'm going to start things off at quarterback. Colin Kaepernick is a player that you should definitely start this week against the St. Louis Rams. In the previous matchup, he posted up 41 points. I see that he could get at least 25 points against a struggling Rams defense. Alex Smith of the Kansas City Chiefs, they're going to be playing against the New York Jets. Now, the Jets actually gave up 20 or more points in all but just one game this season for fantasy play. I think this is going to be a good matchup for Alex Smith to have a good, prosperous game. Next player, Carson Palmer of the Arizona Cardinals. They're going to be playing against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, last week, Colt McCoy, a third-string quarterback for the Washington Redskins, actually posted 16 points. And because of that, and due to the fact that Carson Palmer is having a great season throwing the football, I'm going to have to go with Carson Palmer as a must-start this week at the quarterback position. Next player, actually not the next players, but the next players I want to talk about are players that you should bench at quarterback, starting with Eli Manning of the New York Giants. Now, this week he's going to be playing against a tough Colts defense, despite the fact that this defense gave up 62 points last week to Big Ben Roethlisberger. I'm not really feel too confident in Eli Manning. He has his ups and downs, very inconsistent. I have no trust in him against this Colts defense. Next player, I just mentioned him, Ben Roethlisberger of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, they're going to be hosting the Baltimore Ravens, and they do have the home field advantage, but I definitely would let you know right now, he's not going to give you 60 points against that Baltimore defense, who actually only allowed just actually one more touchdown pass allowed on defense than what Ben Roethlisberger did in last week, and what the Baltimore defense has been doing all around. They only allowed 7 touchdown passes all season, just one more than the 6 touchdown performance last week for Roethlisberger against that Colts defense. I think that the Baltimore defense is going to have a good game. Roethlisberger should struggle in this matchup. Same for Joe Flacco of the Baltimore Ravens. This was a little bit iffy with me. Between these two players, Roethlisberger or Flacco, I think you should probably get Roethlisberger the nod, but I don't really have too much faith in both of these two quarterbacks. You should bench them this week. And RG3, Robert Griffin III of the Washington Redskins. Now, Coach Jay Gruden said that he's going to start this week, and I think he could be decent, but I don't have enough faith in him. He is coming back from an ankle injury. They're playing against the Minnesota Vikings. Not too bad of a defense, but I think that this is going to be another week that you should definitely sit RG3 and see how he performs. And even when he did perform this season, he has not been playing too well. Now, a good play that you could use to replace him is Andy Dalton of the Cincinnati Bengals. They're going to be playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Or Ryan Tannehill, the Miami Dolphins. They're going to be playing against the San Diego Chargers. Headed over to the running back position, players that you should definitely start this week. Ahmad Bradshaw of the Indianapolis Colts. Now, he's actually 5th overall in points at the running back positions thus far in this season. And the New York Giants defense actually allowed 23 points per game at the running back position. And I think that Ahmad Bradshaw will get his vengeance against that Giants team. Alfred Morris of the Washington Redskins, he's a player that you should start this week against the Minnesota Vikings. The Vikings has actually averaged 21 points per game to fantasy players at the running back position. And with the fact that Robert Griffin III will be back at quarterback, that will definitely be a great advantage for Morris to have a good game. And Jeremy Hill of the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, this week, Giovanni Bernard should be out with a hip and plus clavicle injury, and he should be out for this matchup against the Jacksonville Jaguars, which means Jeremy Hill will get more carries for this game. I think he'll become a good sleeper at running back this week. And also Justin Forsett and Le'Veon Bell for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Forsett out of the Baltimore Ravens. I think in this particular matchup between Baltimore and Pittsburgh, they're going to have to try to use their running backs more in order to get down the field, and both teams use their running backs effectively in that first matchup in week 2. So I think you should start both Justin Forsett and Le'Veon Bell definitely this week. Only 2 players that I have concerns about, players that you should bench this week, starting with Chris Ivory of the New York Jets. Now, he's having a pretty decent season. He's 10th overall in points, but he's playing against a Kansas City defense who has not allowed not one rushing touchdown this season. I believe that you should bench Ivory this week. And Andre Williams of the New York Giants. Now, he's coming back from back-to-back weeks of just 5 fantasy points, and they're going to be playing against Indianapolis Colts defense, who's been doing pretty good so far this season against the running backs. So I think that Andre Williams and Chris Ivory should be benched this week at the running back position. Headed over to wide receivers, players that you should start. Definite start this week for Jeremy Maclin of the Philadelphia Eagles. They're playing against that Houston defense. The defense is pretty good, but they have been struggling against the pass, and Jeremy Maclin is having a great season. He's actually in the top 10 in points for the wideouts. A couple of sleepers this week, starting with Brandon LaFell of the New England Patriots. Now, with Tom Brady on fire at quarterback, he's definitely been throwing more passes towards LaFell's direction and actually kind of favoring him over Julian Edelman, who a lot of people, including myself, had high hopes this week. And Andrew Hawkins of the Cleveland Browns. Now, he's been benefiting a lot this season for the past couple of weeks, having actually 100+ yard games, and they'll be playing against the Tampa Bay defense, who is now without Mark Barron. He's actually no longer with the team. He was traded to the St. Louis Rams, and actually that Bucs defense has allowed 33 points per game at the wide receiver position. I think that you should start Hawkins as a good sleeper at the wideout position. Wide receivers that you should bench this week, I'm going to start off with Torrey Smith of the Baltimore Ravens. Been very disappointing this season. Actually, the elder Steve Smith has been a better year. He's actually in the top 15 in wide receiver points so far this season. But for Torrey Smith, he's been a little bit up, and he's pretty much up and down this season. And they're playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers, who actually who have been doing pretty good against the pass, and Torrey Smith has only topped 53 yards just once so far this season. He needs to do a better job. I'm not really feeling him. You should bench him this week. And I mentioned just earlier Julian Edelman of the New England Patriots. They're playing against the Denver Broncos. He's not been. He just signed his contract. He's not living up to that contract. Do not trust him against that Denver defense. Bench him this week, but go right ahead and start Brandon LaFell. Heading over to the tight end position, players that you should start, Dwayne Allen of the Indianapolis Colts playing against the New York Giants. Now, the Giants actually gave up 43 points in the last 2 weeks to the tight end position. Dwayne Allen's been doing pretty good this season. I believe he's in number 6 overall in points at the tight end position. He should be due for a good game. Same with Julius Thomas of the Denver Broncos. Now, for the past 2 weeks, he only posted 2 points each. Having some down weeks, but I think that Peyton Manning will throw the football towards his directions against that Pats defense. And lastly, Travis Kelce out of the Kansas City Chiefs. They're playing against the New York Jets, who actually been giving up. Who actually gave up an NFL high 9 touchdown receptions to the tight end position, and due to the athleticism of Kelce, I think he can have at least a 9-point matchup against that Jets defense. Now, there's only one player at this position that I believe that you should sit this week, and that is Owen Daniels of the Baltimore Ravens. Now, in their first game against Pittsburgh in week 2, he posted up 14 points, but he's actually coming out with a knee procedure. He had a procedure done in his knee this past week, and he's still kind of healing things up, and I highly doubt that he will duplicate those points that he did in week 2 against that Pittsburgh defense, especially the game is going to be played at Pittsburgh. So I think he's the only tight end that I really feel more concerned about and confident you should bench this week. Headed over to the defenses you should definitely start against some weak offenses. Obviously, the Cincinnati Bengals against the Jacksonville Jaguars and their rookie quarterback, Blake Bortles. Kansas City against the Jets offense. The Jets actually had a terrible week this past week. Quarterback Geno Smith had minus 6 fantasy points against that Buffalo Bill defense. And Cleveland against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tampa Bay has been struggling, particularly at the running back position. Bobby Rainey's been struggling. Doug Martin. I think that Cleveland should have a good game against that Tampa Bay offense. Defenses that you should sit this week. Now, this is a defense I believe that you should beware this week, but still go right ahead and start. I think that Houston's defense might have a little bit of a scare this week against Philadelphia, and same with the Miami Dolphin defense against the San Diego Chargers. Miami's defense is actually the top defense thus far this season as far as fantasy points with 78 points. And lastly, both Denver's defense and New England's defense as they have their matchup, because I believe that Tom Brady and Peyton Manning, due to their veterancy, their experience, and their great skill, and both having good seasons, more for Peyton Manning, but Tom Brady has been emerging for the past in recent weeks. I think this is going to be a big time shootout, and I think both defenses will struggle. Bench both of these defenses this week. Now, lastly, the kickers. Couple of kickers that you should definitely start off this week. I mentioned the Cincinnati Bengals is going to be playing against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think that kicker Mike Nugent is going to have a good game. Phil Dawson of the San Francisco 49ers against the St. Louis Rams. I think he should have a definitely good game. And I'm going to have to go with Justin Tucker and Sean Shushan out of Pittsburgh, and Justin Tucker out of Baltimore. I think both of these two players should have a couple of good games. Now, there's only a couple of kickers I believe that you should bench this week. I'm gonna have to start off with Nick Novak from the San Diego Chargers against Miami. Miami has a good defense, as I mentioned before, the top fantasy defense so far this season, and I think that Nick Novak should struggle in this matchup. But I still think that you should start Phillip Rivers at quarterback. But Nick Novak, I'm not really confident in the point value this week against that Miami Dolphin defense, so he should play that. You should sit. And also Blair Walsh out of the Minnesota Vikings. They're playing against the Washington Redskins. Redskins has been doing a pretty good job stopping the rush, and the quarterback position with Teddy Bridgewater or whoever is that quarterback is still trying to get up to par. They're not really playing too well this season. I think that Blair Walsh will not get into any field goal range and struggle in points. I think at most he should have 6 points at the kicker position, so I think you should bench him this week. So that wraps things up for this week, for week 9. The next time I'm going to catch you guys will be on Thursday, where I will talk about Thursday night's matchup, as well as later on next week, where I will talk about players that you should sit and bench for week 10 of this season. Thank you for watching today's blog from the Football Source. I'm your man, Akeem McCall. Be easy.